Gangster Planet Natural Selection, Chapter 1, As Above, Part 2. It did not take long for Otto's small caravan of truckers to draw outside of attention. A negotiator from the Pagans Motorcycle Club reached out to Otto's CB radio, seeking to draw some sort of alliance in the coming harsh years. I accepted the offer on his behalf. He had enough dealings on his plate patrolling and controlling the ground traffic of most of the continental United States. He was more akin to a brigade of heavily armed year-round Santas than a union of the old world. The great Lord Khan Temujin is oft quoted, "Conquering the world on horseback is easy. It is dismounting and governing that is hard." This has proven true, as after a year had passed, and Gus and Otto's influence as the Diesel's Berlin Union had spread far across the vast lands of once was America, the bartering system for commodities like food, water, and ammunition, and building supplies had kept things fairly amicable. As well as with the protection of pagans, we rarely had to fight our own battles. However, it was not long until the dangers of appearing benevolent exposed themselves. Some of our truckers were getting robbed in high-value salvage areas, while sights of hostile mutant wildlife and feral packs of young children increased dramatically as we entered further into the thick of a new Western Dark Age. What the great Lord Chinggis Khan often failed to mention is that the governing process is not always too dissimilar to the conquering. There was this grocery store gang that had been harassing our trucks for weeks, and it seemed that it was time for me to get involved. The Pagans MC protected the roads, yes, but our alliance had done nothing for the harassment deep in our own territory that we were facing from a group of individuals we knew only as the Street Mart Gang. To perhaps test my field commander skills and to prove a point, I set out to provoke an attack by these thugs that I would quell with blinding, unrelenting force. A supposedly typical delivery through the area got stopped by the Street Mart Gang. Typical, except inside that 16-wheeler wasn't any valuable loot. Instead, it was just 6 armed and stone-faced veterans-turned-truckers, each with a mean streak, lovingly nicknamed the Camel Cowboys for their participation in desert wars. They all sat beside me with a grudge, while I gripped my Glock tightly. The grocery thug panics at the sight of resistance, and he fires a warning shot at the sky. This was a key mistake, as I do not fire warning shots. Not long after, my Glock bullet rips through his left lung. I yelled "Raid" at the top of my lungs. I sprinted to the grass, Glock in hand, and rushed past the sliding door at top speed. There are about 9 of these thugs inside, and I've aimed to fire point blank 5 shots to the chest of the one directly in front of me, who was guarding the door. I jumped and twisted around to fire 6 shots directly at the industrial lights of the building. This turned the warehouse pitch black. I recovered from the ground and retraced my steps before springing back over the counter where 3 of the grocery gang could be overheard screaming in confusion. I take the hoodie of the next closest one to me and pull it over his head for a series of opportune knee strikes before bashing his head on the checkout plexiglass sideways, leaving a blood stain that was growing. The second assailant screams out "Manny" in absolute terror. I lifted my Glock to the sky and slammed the butt of the gun onto the nose of the next target with no less than 5 times till they dropped to the ground. I kneel and fire a shot to the temple of the thug to conserve ammunition. Brain matter explodes into the air. I see the last thug's legs stumbling about in front of me, so I trip him as I rise to my feet. Using my hand, I basically ankle pick him. Then I kneel on his throat. grab his nose with one hand, and mash my gun down on his teeth, causing a geyser-like spray of blood. Emergency lights began to illuminate the facility. Their numbers now missing more than a third of their men, I overhear the command retreat to the break room. I then follow. I made sure to amble to the break room at a slow pace, with my gun in the hand. As the crowd pours in, I hear the shouts, "Move the baby," and load up the shotgun from where I was. I backed away, then laid my body against the brick wall next to the break room door and knocked 5 times. 2 shotgun shells and a burst of gunfire showered the door, turning it into toothpicks. I waited 7 seconds before the former manager with the shotgun walks outside to check for a body, coughing up splinters of wood as the dust cleared. I took the opportunity to snatch the shotgun from his hands and follow up with the most hellacious swing of the shotgun I could muster into his forehead. I rushed inside the break room and fired while carrying one of the gunmen onto my shoulder, then firing several more rounds into 4 of his companions. I slammed the man into his head and used his body for cover as I emptied the magazine into the last 2 resisting thugs. I turned around and I could see and hear the whispers and whimpers. These were all clearly children or family members not able-bodied enough to raid, but too weak to fight for themselves. Still, they all stood to benefit under the success of violent acts. I don't blame them, and I hope they do not blame me for their enslavement. I make a call to William, the leader of the nearby pagan MC, on the CB radio. I made it clear that our support of the pagans comes at the cost of protection of all of our caravans, and as a token of our friendship, I would trade the now enslaved Street Mart gang for 2 batches of assassins to be used at my personal destruction. I argued that if not for us supplying their ranks, they, too, long ago, will become victims of their enemies. William understood and granted me my wish. Divisions of assassins as the next task I would set out is not one for those wishing to see the gates of heaven.